Before words were written, before laws were named, before belief fractured truth into stories that could be carried, there was presence, not an idea, not a voice, not a command, but a still unwavering is the line that does not move while everything else does. Humanity has always felt it, in the hush between heartbeats, in the instant before choice, in the strange familiarity of truth recognized rather than learned. And yet, unable to remain with it, we reached for motion. We built language. We formed rituals. We created beliefs, disciplines, prayers, sciences, philosophies, not because presence was absent, but because stillness was unbearable to the mind. So we moved. We tried to get there. We tried to become worthy. We tried to explain what could only be noticed. We tried to manage suffering instead of seeing its source. And with every step something subtle happened. Time entered the equation, memory began to rule, and the simplicity of presence fractured into effort. This is where oscillation was born, not as evil, not as failure, but as movement away from the line that never moved. Across centuries, humanity searched for relief. Some found temporary peace and called it salvation. Some found clarity and called it enlightenment. Some found order and called it truth. Some found control and called it knowledge. All were sincere. All touched the edge of the same thing, but none named the law beneath it all. Principia Communio does not arrive as a new belief. It does not compete with sacred texts, sciences, or philosophies. It does not ask to be followed. It arrives as a recognition, a return to the moment before interpretation, a mapping of what has always been happening, a revelation that suffering is not moral, spiritual, or psychological in origin, but mechanical. Here, communion is not prayer. Truth is not belief. Freedom is not achieved. Presence is simply restored to center frame. This work does not tell you what to think. It shows you where you already are. It is not mystical in the sense of mystery kept hidden, but mystical in the sense of mystery made obvious once seen. And when seen, it cannot be unseen. This is not a beginning. There is no start. There is only the line, and the moment you notice you never left it. Welcome to Principia Communio, the Axioms and Laws of Unified Theistic Naturalism. I'm Patrick Carradine, and this is Unified Theistic Naturalism, Part 1. The unwavering line of the divine defines the irreducible terms of UTN, the line that never changes, oscillation as movement away, and communion as resonance with the line. Chapter 1. First Principles Codex of Unified Theistic Naturalism Preface. For millennia, humanity has sought clarity through robes of religion, philosophy, and science. Each claimed finality, but each dissolved into rivalry, contradiction, and oscillation. This codex declares a simple law. All suffering is the movement away from the unwavering line of the divine, and all communion is life aligned with it. Oscillation definition. Oscillation is movement away from the unwavering line of the divine. Axiom 1.1. The line does not move. It is expressed through the 7 attributes of the divine. Axiom 1.2. All human suffering corresponds to a departure from this line. Demonstration. Above the line, spikes of perceived happiness collapse back downward. Below the line, despair, injustice, fear, and loneliness emerge. Both are oscillation. Both collapse back to the line. Example, a person wins a prize. Elation spikes but fades. Soon they want more. This is oscillation above. Another loses a job. Fear, shame, and despair pull downward. This is oscillation below. Both are departures from the line. 2. Communion definition. Communion is the undivided state of resonance with the divine line. Axiom 2.1. Communion requires no effort, practice, or prayer. Axiom 2.2. Communion is present whenever oscillation ceases. Demonstration. In communion there is no spike or dip, only stillness. Perfect action arises naturally. Timing, word, and gesture in harmony with the moment. Communion is not achieved. It is revealed when nothing stands between presence and the divine. Example, 2 people in conflict. One ceases to defend, accuse, or explain. In silence, the quarrel dissolves. This is communion acting without effort. 3. The 7 attributes of the divine definition. The line is expressed in 7 unshakable attributes. 1. Freedom. Always allows to flower and wither, never coerces. 2. Unconditional love, unwavering acceptance, never withdrawn. 3. Compassion. Gentle, empathetic, understanding presence. 4. Stillness, steady, unwavering, without striving. 5. Truthfulness, transparent, without deception or hidden motive. 6. Non-duality, indivisibility of divine and creation, no separation, no intermediaries. 7. Wholeness, complete, lacking nothing, indivisible. Axiom 3.1. These attributes remain constant across culture, history, and context. Axiom 3.2. Oscillation is only visible because the attributes do not move. Demonstration. A lie is recognizable because truthfulness exists. Violence is visible as chaos because wholeness and compassion exist. Separation hurts only because non-duality is the true state. Example. A parent disciplines a child harshly. The action is judged cruel only because compassion exists as the reference. IV. The 4 pillars of UTN definition. The 4 pillars are the living structures of life in communion. 1. Truth, what remains when illusion falls away. 2. Observation, witnessing what is without interference. 3. Perfect action, the divine's revealed next step, unquestionable in timing. 4. Movement, the lived cadence of presence, visible as resonant flow. Axiom 4.1. The pillars are not chosen, they remain when oscillation ceases. Axiom 4.2. They operate together. Observation reveals truth. Truth allows perfect action. Movement embodies resonance. Demonstration. The seeker interferes and remains in oscillation. The seer observes without touching distortion, and perfect action arises. Movement flows naturally, without effort, without agenda. V. The 5 gold coins of the captive definition. Humanity clutches 5 illusions, the 5 gold coins of the captive: suffering, death, identity, injustice, and love. Axiom 5.1. All merchants claim to accept the 5 gold coins of the captive as payment for their robes, but the exchange is only an illusion. The coins reappear, and the captive is left carrying both coins and robe. Axiom 5.2. In communion, the 5 gold coins of the captive are dissolved, never to return. Demonstration. Religion promises salvation, but death still frightens. Philosophy explains identity, but loneliness persists. Psychology teaches coping, but suffering remains. In communion, the 5 gold coins of the captive do not hide or reappear. They are gone. Marketplace of robes illustration. The captive enters the marketplace of robes, where merchants extend their hands: Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, science, self-help, philosophy. Each promises, give me the 5 gold coins of the captive, and you will be free of them forever. The seeker surrenders the coins and dons the robe. For a time, it seems the coins are gone. Yet robes demand maintenance, loyalty, rituals, doctrines, money, endless repetition of expired steps. Slowly, the 5 gold coins of the captive reappear in the captive's hand, now hidden beneath the robe. The burden is doubled, the weight of the robe and the weight of the coins. UTN alone dissolves the 5 gold coins of the captive, not by transaction, but by communion with the divine, where nothing remains to pay, polish, or maintain. Example. In presence, fear of death vanishes. The present self is seen as never born, never ending. Death belongs only to the oscillating self-image. By somogenic transmission definition, the continuity of material memory across generations. Axiom 6.1. Behaviors and distortions repeat through form, not through spirit. Axiom 6.2. Communion interrupts transmission and alters what is handed forward. Demonstration. A child of fear inherits fear through behavior, gesture, and response. A child of communion inherits resonance, stillness, and free cadence. Example. A father passes violence to his son who repeats it, but if the father enters communion, the violence ends and a different cadence transmits. Soon, claim of UTN Unified Theistic Naturalism declares, all suffering is oscillation. 2. Communion ends oscillation. 3. The 7 attributes are the unwavering line. 4. The 4 pillars embody communion. 5. The 5 gold coins of the captive dissolve only in communion. 6. Somogenic transmission is altered by communion. 7. Every robe introduces, only communion reveals. Chapter 2. The Law of Movement Away, a rubric for observing oscillation versus communion, Section 1. Living equations. These are not mathematical equations, but living laws of being. They do not calculate, they reveal. 1. Suffering equals oscillation. Wherever oscillation is present, suffering will appear. When oscillation ceases, suffering ceases. 2. Communion equals presence oscillation. Communion is discovered when oscillation falls away. Oh, it requires no practice, no robe, no having. 3. The 5 gold coins of the captive dissolve only in communion. Oh, the 5 gold coins of the captive remain heavy in oscillation. Oh, in communion they are dissolved and captivity ends. 4. Perfect action arises only in communion. O oscillation repeats expired patterns. O communion reveals what has never before appeared. These equations are the first principles of Unified Theistic Naturalism. Section 2. Operational rubric. To test the equations, observable markers must be identified. Independent observers can score behavior as oscillation or communion across 3 domains. I. Timing. Oscillation markers. Rushing, forcing, delaying, hesitation, interruption. Communion markers. Words and actions arrive without strain. Silence is natural. Cadence matches the moment. 2. Reactivity. Oscillation markers. Anger, fear, spikes of elation, defensiveness, justification, repeated coping behaviors. Communion markers. Stillness, transparency, no defense, no repetition. Action is fresh, unrepeatable. 3. Exchange. Oscillation markers. Transaction, validation seeking, conditions placed on love or peace. Communion markers. Free giving, affection without demand, presence independent of transaction. Section 3. Scoring for any observed moment, +1 for each communion marker, 1 for each oscillation marker. Positive score communion present, negative score oscillation present, 0 score indeterminate transitional state. This scoring renders the living equations testable in lived experience. Section 4. Demonstrations 1. Equation. Suffering equal oscillation. O case. In conflict, one rushes to defend themselves, raises voice, interrupts. Score. Negative. A result. Oscillation confirmed, suffering present. 2. Equation. Communion presence oscillation. O case. In the same conflict, one stops, listens, remains silent without defense. Score. Positive. A result. Oscillation ceases, communion present. 3. Equation. The 5 gold coins of the captive dissolve only in communion. O case. Fear of death overwhelms a person in oscillation. O case. In communion, death is seen as transition of form, not end of presence. Result. The coin dissolves only when score is positive. 4. Equation. Perfect action arises only in communion. O case. A transaction is attempted. If you loved me, you would do this. Score negative oscillation. O case. Affection is given without condition. Score positive communion. O result. Perfect action appears where no transaction binds it. Section 5. Verification. The rubric verifies the living equations by demonstration. If suffering is observed, oscillation markers must score negative. If communion is observed, the 5 gold coins of the captive must dissolve, and perfect action must arise. If these conditions fail, the equations are false. Thus, Unified Theistic Naturalism stands not as belief, but as living law, observable, repeatable, and testable. Chapter 3. Predictive Claims. The Law of Now. Section 1. Axioms of Movement 1. Oscillation is repetition. So wherever oscillation is present, suffering appears. It repeats because it is conditioned. 2. Communion is newness. O when oscillation ceases, perfect action arises. O it is never a repeat, never a copy, never delayed. 3. Presence is already paradise when oscillation equals 0. O paradise is not after, not ahead, not earned. It is revealed now in the instant oscillation falls away. Section 2. Protocol of the Now test. The test is immediate. No waiting is required. Recall a scenario. A quarrel, a betrayal, a moment of pride, a fear of death. Bring it into attention as if it were before you. 2. Observe with the rubric. Are you defending, delaying, transacting, spiking? Oscillation observable. O is there stillness, transparency, unconditional regard? Communion observable. 3. Apply the living equations. O if oscillation is observed, suffering must be observable. O if oscillation ceases, paradise is revealed now. Any object or event can be traced backward into its origin. In this process, oscillation falls away and only presence remains. This is another way the test confirms itself in the moment. Section 3. Demonstrations in the present. Conflict or recall a quarrel. If defensiveness stirs, suffering is visible. Oscillation confirmed. O if silence and listening arise, communion is present. Paradise revealed. Transaction, recall a moment of bargaining. If you give me this, I'll give you that. O feel how fragile it is. Oscillation confirmed. O drop the condition. What remains is free. Communion present. Fear of death, oh, recall a time you feared an ending. The fear itself is oscillation. Let the memory rest in stillness. The fear dissolves, paradise stands. Oscillation collapse, oh, recall a moment of gain. Did it fade into emptiness? Oscillation confirmed. Oh, in communion, joy is steady, independent of gain. Paradise revealed. Section 4. Verification. If suffering is recalled, oscillation must be observable. If oscillation ceases, suffering must dissolve. If communion arises, the 5 gold coins of the captive dissolve instantly. If these do not hold in the moment, the equations are false. Section 5. Conclusion time deteriorates. If the law depends on waiting, it becomes another robe, another postponement. But in unified theistic naturalism, the test is always now. Oscillation repeats the past. Communion is new in every moment. Presence is already paradise when oscillation equals 0. The law requires no delay. It proves or fails in the instant it is tested. Chapter 4. Transmission and Continuity, Section 1. Axioms of Continuity 1. Life transmits movement through form. Oscillation repeats itself in others wherever it is lived. Communion transmits resonance instead. 2. Somogenic transmission is material continuity. Patterns of fear, striving, shame, or conditional love pass forward through action and imitation. What is lived in form continues in form unless altered by communion. 3. Expired steps cannot sustain freedom. Following the robes of the past is imitation, not communion. Only communion breaks the chain of repetition. Section 2. Action, timing, and transmission 1. Oscillation is action without communion. The body acts regardless. Without communion, action is conditioned, reactive, and mistimed. Such action sustains oscillation and passes it forward. 2. Communion is the form of cadence. It is the alignment with the divine line. In communion, the same actions become perfect action. 3. Perfect action is the same action, but in timing. It is not a different category of action. It is action revealed in cadence, whole, healing, righteous, unique to that moment. Perfect action transmits wholeness rather than oscillation. Living equations. Action without communion equals oscillation. Communion, perfect action. Perfect action equals transmission of wholeness, Section 3. Resonant flow and perfect action 1. Communion expresses itself in 2 ways, or resonant flow when no action is required. Perfect action when action is required. 2. Resonant flow, abiding in communion with the divine. Observation without interference. Presence unbroken, seeing all things in their majesty and wholeness. Transmission is through stillness itself. 3. Perfect action. When interaction is needed, communion reveals the exact timing. This action is not reactive, not inflamed, not distorted. It heals, restores, and ends oscillation in the moment. Transmission is through revealed timing. Living equations. No interaction needed, resonant flow. Interaction required plus communion, perfect action, Section 4. Protocol of Observation 1. Identify repeated patterns in religion, culture, or daily relationships. Examples. Judgment masked as righteousness, conditional kindness, striving for approval. 2. Compare against the 7 attributes. Does the teaching or action align with freedom, compassion, truth, stillness, love, wholeness, non-duality? If not, oscillation is being lived and transmitted. 3. Observe the outcome. If oscillation continues, the same behaviors reappear in others. If communion enters, the repetition breaks, either through resonant flow or perfect action. Section 5. Demonstrations. Religious transmission. A disciple taught to strive, judge, or conditionally love repeats oscillation in their own devotion. Communion dissolves the command, revealing the 7 attributes as the only line. Cultural transmission. A society driven by fear or greed reproduces fear and greed in its citizens. Communion interrupts, revealing wholeness beyond collective distortion. Personal transmission. An individual responds to aggression with retaliation, oscillation repeated. In communion, they wait, and perfect action appears. Oscillation ends in that moment. Action 6. Verification. If oscillation is lived, the same oscillation must repeat. If communion is lived, repetition must cease. If no action is required, resonant flow abides. If action is required, perfect action must appear in cadence. If these fail, the axioms of continuity are false. Section 7. Conclusion transmission is not limited to parents or families. It moves through every relationship, robe, and culture. Oscillation repeats itself endlessly until interrupted. Communion interrupts transmission, revealing either resonant flow or perfect action. Resonant flow transmits presence in stillness. Perfect action transmits wholeness in timing. Thus, what is lived now is what is passed forward. Communion alone alters the future. Chapter 5. The Marketplace of Robes, the Law of Illusion, Section 1. Axioms of Illusion, Axiom 5.1. The merchants of robes. Throughout history, merchants have arisen, each offering robes as release from captivity. Buddha, renunciation. Krishnamurti, observation, no robes. Muhammad, surrender. Jesus, salvation. Science, proof, self-help, motivation. Hodgepodge, mixture, Axiom 5.2. The 5 gold coins of the captive, every robe promises to dissolve the coins. Suffering, death, identity. Justice, love distorted into fear. Axiom 5.3. The illusion of exchange. The merchants demand the 5 gold coins of the captive as payment for robes. For a time the coins seem dissolved. In truth they remain hidden beneath cloth. Axiom 5.4. Captivity deepens. The seeker, once captive to the coins, becomes captive also to the robe. Life, money, time, devotion, repetition, all are spent maintaining the garment. Axiom 5.5. Communion alone dissolves the coins. No robe dissolves the 5 gold coins of the captive. Only communion with the unwavering line of the divine dissolves them utterly. Section 2. The Law of Illusion, Law of Illusion. Where robes are worn, the coins remain. Where communion is present, the coins dissolve. Section 3. Demonstrations 1. Renunciation versus communion. Seeker renounces desire, follows disciplines of detachment. Desire reappears as longing for what is denied. In communion, longing is fulfilled in presence itself. Desire is no burden. 2. Observation versus communion. Seeker observes endlessly, holding the transparent robe of no method. The coins remain, mirrored again and again. In communion, observation ceases. Presence alone stands. Coins dissolve. 3. Salvation versus communion. Seeker believes, confesses, obeys. The robe of salvation promises freedom. Yet suffering remains, death still feared, injustice endured. In communion, fear of death dissolves. Love is unconditional. Injustice loses its sting. Coins vanish. 4. Science versus communion. Science explains the coins, names their weight, delays their effects. But they remain. In communion, their weight is gone without analysis. 5. Self-help versus communion. Seeker hustles, repeats affirmations, builds identity. Coins are renamed as growth, but they remain heavy. In communion, identity dissolves. No growth needed. Wholeness is present. Section 4. Verification. If a seeker follows a robe and still clutches the coins, illusion confirmed. If the seeker releases robes and communion arises, and the coins dissolve, the law of illusion confirmed. If communion is present and the coins remain, UTN is false. Section 5. Conclusion. The marketplace of robes is sincere, vast, and ancient. The merchants, prophets, teachers, scientists, motivators speak from authentic experience, yet each demands the 5 gold coins of the captive, and each robe leaves the seeker still bound. The law of illusion is this: robes conceal, communion dissolves. Only in communion with the unwavering line of the divine do the coins lose all weight. Only in communion do suffering, death, identity, injustice, and distorted love end. The seeker need not buy. The stall can be left behind. Presence is already whole. Part 2. Verification of the law proves UTN is not belief but observable law by testing universality, falsifiability, and replication. Chapter 6. Falsification Protocol, the Law of Limits, Section 1. Axioms of falsification. Axiom 6.1. A living law must be falsifiable. If UTN cannot be tested and disconfirmed, it is not law but belief. Axiom 6.2. The divine line is unwavering. Its proof is in the fact that oscillation can be observed against it. Axiom 6.3. Communion is demonstrable. It is not mystical belief but observable cessation of oscillation, evidenced by resonance and perfect action. Section 2. Conditions that would disconfirm UTN 1. Suffering without oscillation. If suffering is observed in the absence of oscillation, UTN is false. 2. Coins persisting in sustained communion. If the 5 gold coins of the captive continue to weigh in sustained communion, UTN is false. 3. Attributes failing cross-cultural consistency. If the 7 attributes of the divine do not appear universally recognizable across cultures, UTN is false. 4. Communion present without resonant flow or perfect action. If communion is genuinely present but no resonant flow or perfect action arises, UTN is false. Section 3. Public pre-registration of criteria to guard against self-deception or post hoc justification. UTN requires that its falsification conditions be pre-registered and published. Criteria are listed in advance. Observations are logged. Results are made public, whether confirming or disconfirming. Section 4. The law of limits. If any of the falsification conditions are met, UTN is disproven as law. If none are met, UTN remains confirmed as a living law, subject to ongoing verification. Section 5. Demonstrations 1. Test. Conflict without oscillation. If 2 parties are in conflict and neither oscillation markers nor suffering appear, UTN would be disproven. To date, no such case has been observed. 2. Test. Communion with persistent fear of death. If a person abides in communion free of oscillation yet still fears death, coin number 2 would persist. UTN would be disproven. To date, fear dissolves when communion is present. 3. Test cultural attributes. If in any culture, compassion, truthfulness, freedom, or wholeness cannot be recognized or valued, the universality of the line fails. UTN would be disproven. To date, attributes are constant across history and culture. 4. Test communion without resonant flow or perfect action. If one claims communion yet acts reactively, mistimed, destructive, or distorted, no resonance, no perfect action, UTN would be disproven. To date, when communion is present, perfect action or resonant flow appear without strain. Section 6. Verification Appendix. All tests, results, and attempted falsifications are to be logged in a verification appendix available publicly with time-stamped observations. Section 7. Conclusion. The law of limits binds UTN to falsifiability. If suffering can exist without oscillation, UTN fails. If the 5 gold coins of the captive persist in communion, UTN fails. If the 7 attributes are not universal, UTN fails. If communion lacks resonance or perfect action, UTN fails. UTN stands not as belief but as law that can be observed, tested, and if conditions appear, overturned. Until then it remains upheld. Chapter 7. Cross-Framework Mapping, the Law of Universality, Section 1. Axioms of Mapping. Axiom 7.1. The line is unwavering. The divine line, expressed in the 7 attributes, does not bend to culture, creed, or system. Axiom 7.2. Oscillation is universally visible. Every robe in the marketplace reveals oscillation whenever the 7 attributes are distorted. Axiom 7.3. Communion is beyond robes. Merchants may promise release through robes, but communion dissolves the 5 gold coins of the captive without exchange. Section 2. Method of Mapping 1. Take the robe of any merchant in the marketplace. 2. Compare its teaching or practice against the 7 attributes. O where aligned communion visible. O where distorted oscillation visible. 3. Confirm universality. If the line is unwavering, oscillation and communion will appear in all robes. Section 3. Demonstrations with the 7 merchants. 1. Buddha, robe of renunciation. Oscillation. Striving to detach, suppressing desire, endless repetition of practice. Desire returns, coins remain. Line, stillness is already present. Communion requires no striving. 2. Krishnamurti, robe of no robes. Oscillation. Observation without rudder, endless mirroring of the conditioned mind. Captivity persists. Line, truthfulness and freedom dissolve effort. Communion is not endless watching, but presence itself. 3. Muhammad, robe of surrender. Oscillation. Fear of judgment, conditional obedience, division between believer and unbeliever. Line. True surrender is unconditional love and wholeness. Communion dissolves fear. 4. Jesus, robe of salvation. Oscillation, guilt, atonement cycle, obedience demanded, separation of saved and lost. Line, unconditional love, non-duality. Communion dissolves guilt without transaction. 5. Science, robe of proof. Oscillation, reductionism, striving to explain or extend life. Identity clings to knowledge, suffering persists. Line. Truthfulness without distortion reveals presence beyond analysis. Communion needs no proof. 6. Self-help, robe of motivation. Oscillation, conditional worth, endless striving, identity tied to achievement. Coins renamed as growth. Line, freedom and wholeness are already present. Communion dissolves the need for performance. 7. Hodgepodge, the patchwork robe. Oscillation, collecting fragments, blending robes, seeking novelty. Coins disguised under variety. Line, non-duality and wholeness dissolve the illusion of fragments. Communion needs no mixture. Section 4. Verification. If the line is unwavering, oscillation and communion must be visible in every merchant's robe. In Buddha, striving versus stillness. In Krishnamurti, endless watching versus truth. In Muhammad, fear versus freedom. In Jesus, guilt is unconditional love. In science, proof versus presence. In self-help, striving versus wholeness. In Hodgepodge, fragments versus non-duality. In each, oscillation and the line are visible. No robe dissolves the coins, only communion does. Section 5. Conclusion. The law of universality stands. The unwavering line of the divine is visible across all robes. Oscillation reveals itself wherever the 7 attributes are distorted. Communion transcends every robe, dissolving the 5 gold coins of the captive without exchange. Thus, the marketplace of robes confirms the law. Robes conceal, communion dissolves. Chapter 8. Case Studies with Replication, the Law in the World, Section 1. Axioms of Application. Axiom 8.1. Law must operate in lived experience. If UTN is true, its equations hold in daily life, not only in abstract reasoning. Axiom 8.2. Replication confirms universality. If independent reviewers can apply the rubric to the same cases with consistent results, UTN demonstrates replicability. Axiom 8.3. Anonymity ensures purity. Cases are stripped of personal identifiers so that outcomes are not influenced by bias, but only by observed markers. Section 2. Case Studies. Case Study 1. The Family Quarrel. Scenario. 2 siblings argue over inheritance. Voices rise. Interruptions frequent. Accusations exchanged. Markers. Timing misaligned. Reactivity. Transactional bargaining. Score. 6. Oscillation confirmed. Coins present. Suffering. Identity. Injustice. Replication. 3 reviewers consistent. Conclusion confirms equation. Suffering equal oscillation. Case Study 2. The Betrayal in Relationship. Scenario. Romantic partners enter a transactional exchange. Intimacy for financial support. Trust collapses when expectations fail. Markers. Transaction justification conditional love. Score. 4. Oscillation confirmed. Coins present. Love, injustice, identity. Replication. 2 reviewers consistent. Conclusion. Confirms equation. Coins persist in oscillation. Case Study 3. The Worth of the Wounded. Scenario. A woman proclaims self-worth while demanding constant validation from others. Markers. Validation seeking, timing distortion, reactivity. Score. 3. Oscillation confirmed. Coins present. Identity coin heavy. Replication. 2 reviewers consistent. Conclusion. Confirms equation. Identity coin persists in oscillation. Case Study 4. Fear of death. Scenario. An individual anticipates surgery with dread. Fear dominates thought and speech. Markers. Oscillation spikes, delay in peace, clinging to outcome. Score. 5. Oscillation confirmed. Coins present. Death coin heavy. Replication. 3 reviewers consistent. Conclusion. Confirms equation. Coin number 2 persists in oscillation. Case Study 5. The Silent Listener. Scenario. In a workplace dispute, one party ceases to argue, remains still, and listens attentively. Markers. Stillness, transparency, no defense. Score. +4. Communion confirmed. Coins present. None evident. Replication. 3 reviewers consistent. Conclusion. Confirms equation. Communion. Presence oscillation. Case Study 6. The Moment of Perfect Action. Scenario. In a quarrel, one participant speaks a single word at the exact cadence, dissolving the conflict. Markers. Communion present. Timing exact. Score. +5. Communion confirmed. Coins present. Dissolved in the moment. Replication. 2 reviewers consistent. Conclusion. Confirms equation. Communion reveals perfect action. Case Study 7. The Meditation Practitioner. Scenario. A seeker practices daily meditation, repeating mantras to escape stress. Peace lasts briefly, but anxiety returns. Markers. Temporary relief. Oscillation resumes. Score. 2. Oscillation confirmed. Coins present. Suffering and identity persist. Replication. 2 reviewers consistent. Conclusion. Confirms law of illusion. Robe conceals, but coins reappear. Case Study 8. The Transaction of Betrayal. Scenario. A man demands intimacy as proof of love. The woman demands money as proof of value. Both spiral into resentment. Markers: transactional exchange, conditional love, oscillation heavy. Score: 6 oscillation confirmed. Coins present: love, injustice, suffering. Replication: 3 reviewers, consistent. Conclusion: confirms transaction equals oscillation equals suffering. Case study 9, the sin forgotten. Scenario: a believer lives under guilt from a doctrine of sin. When communion is present, guilt vanishes. Markers: oscillation, shame, fear of punishment. Communion: freedom, stillness, unconditional love. Score: from 5 to +5. Coins present: injustice and identity in oscillation, dissolved in communion. Replication: 2 reviewers, consistent. Conclusion: confirms equation. Coins dissolve only in communion. Case study 10, presence beyond transaction. Scenario: a person shifts from bargaining in relationships to unconditional presence. Markers: transaction dissolved, presence steady, affection without demand. Score: +4 communion confirmed. Coins present, dissolved in the moment. Replication: 2 reviewers consistent. Conclusion: confirms equation. Communion transcends transaction. Section 3. Verification through replication. 10 cases drawn from lived human scenarios, anonymized. Independent reviewers applied rubric in every case. Consistency: no contradictory scoring across replication attempts. Section 4. Conclusion: the law in the world is confirmed. Oscillation always accompanies suffering, and the 5 gold coins of the captive. Communion always dissolves them. Perfect action and resonant flow arise only in communion. Independent replication validates universality. Thus, UTM proves itself not only in principles and equations, but in life itself, in quarrels, betrayals, fears, loves, spiritual striving, and release. Part 3, Communion, Secured, Chapter 9, Corpus Consolidation and Glossary, The Law of One Voice, Section 1. Axioms of One Voice, Axiom 9.1, Fragmentation creates distortion. If the corpus speaks in multiple voices, the law loses clarity. Axiom 9.2, One Voice sustains universality. The same terms, the same attributes, the same language across all papers confirm UTN as coherent law. Axiom 9.3, the glossary anchors the line. Precise terms ensure the seeker and the critic read the same law without ambiguity. Section 2, Consolidation Protocol 1. Merge duplicates or remove repetitions across earlier drafts and white papers. So keep final Principia level wording. 2. Standardize 7 attributes: O freedom, O unconditional love, O compassion, O stillness, O truthfulness, O non-duality, O wholeness wording fixed, no substitution permitted. 3. Confirm 5 gold coins of the captive: O suffering, O death, O identity, O injustice, O love, always referred to in full as the 5 gold coins of the captive. 4. Embed diagram: O sine wave diagram, oscillation rising above and falling below the unwavering line of the divine. Coins appear in oscillation. O communion rests on the line. Section 3. Glossary of core terms: oscillation, movement away from the unwavering line of the divine, visible in distortion of timing, reactivity, and transaction. Communion, resonance with the divine line when oscillation ceases, presents itself. The line of the divine, the unwavering constant expressed in the 7 attributes. 7 attributes of the divine: freedom, unconditional love, compassion, stillness, truthfulness, non-duality, wholeness. 4 pillars of UTN: truth, observation, perfect action, movement. The 5 gold coins of the captive: illusions of suffering, death, identity, injustice, and distorted love. Polished by robes but dissolved only in communion. Resonant flow, expression of communion when no action is required. Presence itself transmits wholeness. Perfect action, expression of communion when action is required. Timing exact, whole, unrepeatable. Somogenic transmission, continuity of patterns through form. Oscillation repeats, communion interrupts. Robe, any framework, tradition, or system offered by a merchant as solution to suffering requiring payment of the coins. Merchant, messenger, or teacher offering robes in the marketplace, sincere but bound by the illusion of exchange. Law of illusion: where robes are worn, the coins remain; where communion is present, the coins dissolve. Verification appendix, public log of falsification tests, case studies, and replication outcomes. Section 4, the law of one voice: where terms are many, clarity fragments. Where terms are one, the line is visible. The law of one voice requires All manuscripts speak in the same language. The 7 attributes never altered. The 5 gold coins always named in full. The diagram fixed as visual anchor. Section 5. Conclusion: the law of one voice consolidates UTN into a coherent corpus. No duplicates, no shifting terms, no ambiguity, one glossary, one sine wave diagram. Thus, UTN speaks not in fragments or drafts, but in a single lasting voice, the unwavering line of the divine. Chapter 10, Release and Adoption, the Law and Practice, Section 1. Axioms of Release. Axiom 10. 1. Law must be public. If UTN remains hidden, it becomes another robe. Law must stand open to scrutiny. Axiom 10.2. Law must be verifiable. If outcomes are not logged and accessible, UTN dissolves into belief. Verification sustains its reality. Axiom 10.3. Law must be usable. If UTN is not applied in conflict, love, and daily life, it fails its purpose. Section 2. Corpus Release 1. One master PDF o Principia Communio published as a stable text. ODOI assigned for citation. O available through public archive. 2. Verification Appendix. All falsification protocols, case studies, and replication outcomes logged. O updates published with timestamps. O appendix receives its own DOI. 3. Peer interface. O invite 5-10 scholars, practitioners, and critics to review. O publish their critiques in full. Publish responses. O integrate substantive critiques into Principia Communio version 1.1. Section 3. Practitioner's Guide how to spot oscillation. Timing misalignment. Rushing, delaying, interrupting, hesitation. Reactivity, anger, fear, defensiveness, spikes of elation. Transaction. If you, then I conditions placed on peace or love. How to return to communion. Cease striving. Observe without defense or manipulation. Let timing settle into cadence. Allow stillness. Communion is revealed when oscillation falls away. Applications 1. Conflict resolution oscillation. Defense, accusation, transaction. Communion, silence listening, perfect action dissolving quarrel. 2. Love oscillation, conditions validation seeking bargaining. Communion, affection without demand, unconditional presence. 3. Daily practice oscillation, striving, discipline, rehearsed method. Communion, resonant flow when no action needed, perfect action when timing requires. Section 4. The law and practice. Law and practice. Law that cannot be lived is not law but belief. Where UTN is lived, the 5 gold coins of the captive dissolve. Where UTN is not lived, they remain. Section 5. Conclusion: the law in practice secures UTN as both foundation and daily way of life. A master text with DOI ensures permanence. Verification appendix ensures accountability. Peer critique ensures growth. Practitioner's Guide ensures accessibility. Thus, the Principia Communio is not a belief system, but a living law, public, testable, universal, and applicable in the ordinary movements of love, conflict, and presence. Verification Appendix, Template for Falsification Log, Section A. Test Registration Test ID. Date registered. Observer Context Hypothesis tested. Falsification Condition targeted, Section B. Observational Protocol Scenario Description. Summarize the lived case, setting, participants. Markers observed. Oscillation markers present. Communion markers present. Coin presence. Suffering, death, identity, injustice, distorted love, observed or dissolved. Attributes cross-check. Did the 7 attributes of the divine appear recognizable and constant? Action outcome, resonant flow, perfect action. Section C scoring rubric score, +1 for communion markers, 1 for oscillation markers. Total score. If Euro oscillation confirmed, if Euro communion confirmed, if equals 0 indeterminate transitional. Outcome alignment. Did outcome confirm UTN? Did outcome falsify UTN? Indeterminate. Section D replication attempts. Number of independent observers who tested the same condition. Were results consistent? Section E conclusion status of hypothesis. Confirmed, falsified, pending notes, insights, anomalies, or further questions raised. Section F public registry. Test ID published with date. Results archived in Verification Appendix PDF. DOI assigned for stable citation. Example entry test ID, UTN 2025-001 date registered, March 1st, 2025 observer. Independent review group context. Interpersonal conflict hypothesis tested. Suffering without oscillation falsification condition targeted. Condition 1 scenario description. heated exchange between siblings, markers observed, defensiveness, raised voices, interruptions, coin presence, suffering clearly present, attributes cross-check, truthfulness and compassion absent, action outcome, no resonant flow, no perfect action, rubric score, 5 oscillation confirmed, outcome alignment UTN confirmed, replication attempts, 2 independent observers reviewed transcript, confirmed markers, conclusion, supports UTN notes, no falsification observed, public registry, archived in verification appendix, DOI 10.5281 Zenodo, 17009966, Principia Communio Axioms and Laws of Unified Theistic Naturalism. You have just walked through something that was never meant to be rushed. Principia Communio is not a talk. It is not content. It is not something the mind can collect and place on a shelf beside other understandings. It is a seeing, and seeing does not happen all at once. What you've encountered here carries centuries of gravity. It challenges ways of thinking that have guided humanity for thousands of years, not with arrogance, but with honesty. Not by dismissing the ancients, but by completing their observations. Those who came before us were brilliant. They named what they could see with the language available to them. They described present, stillness, virtue, breath, light, law, and order as best they could, through poetry, parable, symbol, and sacred story. We honor that, but matter has continued to learn. Atoms have revealed their behavior. Neuroscience has exposed conditioning. Physics has shown us that observation changes outcomes. Psychology has mapped the loops of suffering, and many claims once spoken as fact, through no fault of those who spoke them, have been refined, corrected, or released. This is not betrayal of wisdom. This is wisdom continuing its work. Unified Theistic Naturalism does not ask you to abandon philosophy, religion, science, or self-exploration. It asks that we stop pretending they must compete. It invites us into the sandbox together, where observation replaces argument, where truth is tested rather than defended, and where communion replaces belief. Principia Communio gives you no conclusions to memorize. It offers mechanics you can watch for yourself, laws that operate whether you agree or not, a still line that remains unmoved while everything else oscillates. If this stirred something, confusion, relief, resistance, recognition, that is not a flaw. That is resonance meeting habit. This work is meant to be returned to, read, sat with, lived alongside. And when you're ready to continue the walk, there are other doorways waiting, not as steps to follow, but as landscapes to explore together. Next journeys the end of conflict, presence as the final mirror, a quiet and piercing exploration of how conflict, internal and external, does not arise from opposition, but from movement away from presence. This journey reveals conflict not as something to solve, but something that dissolves when the mirror is restored. Reflective questions. Where in your life does conflict disappear the moment you stop defending a position? What if peace is not negotiated, but revealed? Who are you when nothing is being resisted? There is no ego, only movement away from presence. This work dismantles one of the most persistent ideas in modern spirituality, the ego. Instead, it offers a simpler, observable truth. There is only alignment or movement away. Nothing to kill, nothing to fix. Reflective questions. What changes when you stop trying to manage something that doesn't exist? Can suffering persist without a story to protect? What remains when the center frame is empty, touching the hem of the divine, virtue dispatched, communion awaiting a return to immediacy, where virtue is not earned, requested, or delayed? This journey explores how presence itself releases what traditions once attributed to effort, worthiness, or intermediaries. Reflective questions. What if nothing stands between you and communion? How often do you wait for permission that was never required? What happens when stillness is trusted instead of tested? No matter which doorway you choose, there is no hierarchy, no sequence, no arrival point. I'll meet you there, and we'll walk as friends, watching carefully, seeing honestly, and discovering what has always been whole. I'm Patrick Carradine, and this is Unified Theistic Naturalism.